What's going on, guys? The Comics Kid 2099 here. Welcome to day 239 of the 365-day graphic novel review challenge. Today I want to talk to you about Ragnarok, Volume 1, written and drawn by Walt Simonson. This is the first 6 issues of an ongoing series from IDW. Walt Simonson, as you probably know, he had a very definitive run on Thor from Marvel Comics in the 1980s. I really liked roughly a third of his Thor run, pretty much from the very beginning of Walt Simonson's run all the way up to the end of the Surtur saga. I really liked all of that a lot. Really liked his writing, really liked his art, and then after the Surtur saga, it kind of went downhill for me. I wasn't liking all that stuff as much, but I really like Walt Simonson as an artist, and I think as a storyteller, he is really good also, and he is bringing his A game on this book. His art here looks better than it ever has before. I think that his art is pretty much on par with what it was in the 1980s when he was doing Thor at Marvel, but the technological tools at hand have improved since the 1980s, so his art looks a lot better. Coloring techniques, for example, they have improved leaps and bounds because of computers and Photoshop and stuff like that. And so his art looks a lot more polished now than it did in the 1980s, but his style is still as good as it was in the 80s. I would say his art is not as experimental here as it was in the Judas Coin, which is an original graphic novel he did at DC about 5-ish years ago. I would say that the art is not as experimental as it was there, but the style is still very good. It's still very Walt Simonson. There's this one issue where there are all of these characters in a big group, and they're all getting killed one by one, and every time one of these characters gets killed, we see a little tiny panel of the character's face, and then a little red line going through the panel, indicating that they're dead. And that's something I don't think I've ever seen in a comic book before. And it looks a lot more like something you would see in a video game, or a wrestling tournament, or something like that, like on TV, where they would do something like that in the corner of the screen. But I really like that. That was something that was interesting. I've never seen anything like that before. But it was also very simple and very direct. I really like this book. I don't know that much about Norse mythology. Really, all that I do know about it comes from my knowledge of Marvel Comics. And Thor, as a series, is not one of those series that I've read a ton of. Basically, I've read the J. Michael Straczynski run, and I've read the Walt Simonson run. And that's about all that I know. Other than that, I know Thor from the movies. So I don't know how close this is to the original Norse mythology, but this feels a lot closer to what I imagine Norse mythological Thor is like than what the Marvel Comics Thor is like. The Marvel Comics Thor is basically half space adventure hero and half Norse mythology. And what little I know of Thor, I've always thought it would have been cool if they could have gone in one direction or the other. If they could have gone just 100% space adventure hero, kind of like what Jack Kirby would later do with the New Gods at DC, where you have these gods and they have spaceships and they're all on these other planets. If they had gone in that direction, or if they had gone 100% mythological, which is kind of what this book does. And I think either way would be a good choice. And this book totally goes in the mythology angle. There's one tiny little sci-fi element, and that's kind of a Stargate type thing, where you have this big circular portal thing that's powered by energy. Kind of sort of reminds me of the Stargate TV show. That's the most sci-fi that this book goes, and I don't have a problem with that. But I really like this depiction of Thor. He's very different from the Marvel Comics Thor, but he's not a mindless barbarian, which is what I thought he would be. You look at something like The Sandman, where Neil Gaiman portrayed Thor as being this mindless brute who's not really much of a hero at all like he is at Marvel Comics. This version of Thor, he's not the mindless brute that Neil Gaiman portrayed him as being, but he's not the noble, heroic figure that he is at Marvel Comics. He's a lot more brooding than either of those versions, and rightly so. When you see what's going on in this book, you think that he has a right to be broody. But I really like this version of Thor. I really like the antagonists that we have here, where they are portrayed as being very sympathetic, even though you know that they are going to be coming to blows with Thor, and for their point of view, they have a very good reason to be coming to blows with him. I really, really love this book. I cannot wait to see Volume 2. This is one of those series that I would really love to have as a big omnibus on my shelf, but it would cost like $150 billion because this is a very, very nice series, and it's going to look really pretty on someone's shelf when it's all collected in one big omnibus type volume. So anyway, those are my thoughts on Ragnarok Volume 1. I hope that you guys liked this video, and if you did, be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe, and I will be back tomorrow with a different video. In the meantime, you guys have a great rest of the day. Catch you later.